This is a screwdriver. On May 21, 1946, a physicist used one exactly like it to hold apart two halves of a metal shell. His hand slipped by about 2 centimeters. 9 days later, he was dead. He was working on a sphere of plutonium the size of a grapefruit. In the 11 months it existed, it killed 2 men. In the same room, in almost the same way. They started calling it the demon core. But that sphere was never unstable. It sat on a table for months, completely safe, warm to the touch. What killed those 2 men wasn't the plutonium. It was geometry. It was the 3rd plutonium core built by the Manhattan Project. The first was the Trinity test. The second destroyed Nagasaki. The third was ready in August 1945, scheduled for a 3rd bombing, and Japan surrendered before it shipped. So it stayed at Los Alamos, and physicists started running experiments on it. On the evening of August 21, 1945, a 24-year-old named Harry Daghlian went into the lab alone, which was against the rules. He was stacking bricks of tungsten carbide around the core. And to understand why that's dangerous, you need one idea. Plutonium atoms break apart on their own, firing out neutrons. If a neutron hits another atom, that one splits 2 and fires out more. 2, 4, 8, a chain reaction. But in a lump of plutonium, most neutrons fly straight out into the room and hit nothing. The chain dies before it starts. The sphere is stable. Now put a wall of the right material around it. The escaping neutrons don't leave anymore, they bounce back in. You haven't added any plutonium, you've just stopped the neutrons from getting away. And that is enough. Daghlian dropped a brick onto the core. He reached in with his bare hand and knocked it away. It took a few seconds. He walked out, feeling fine. Radiation doesn't hurt when it hits you. There are no nerve endings for it. It tears through the molecules inside your cells and breaks the machinery that lets them divide. Your body doesn't notice for hours. He died 25 days later. The core was cleaned, checked, and put back into service. 9 months later, the same core was on a table in a different building. Louis Slotin was 35, Canadian, and the best in the world at a procedure everyone else was afraid of. Richard Feynman called it tickling the dragon's tail. Here's what it was. You put the plutonium sphere inside a beryllium shell. Beryllium is one of the best neutron reflectors there is. Then you lower the top half over it slowly and watch the neutron count climb. As the halves close, fewer neutrons escape. The reaction accelerates. And just before the shell shuts completely, you stop. The whole experiment is about approaching a line without crossing it. The protocol required metal spacers that make it physically impossible for the shell to close. Slotin didn't use them. He held the top half up with the blade of a screwdriver. He had done it dozens of times. Fermi had reportedly warned him he'd be dead within a year. On May 21, 1946, there were 8 people in the room. Slotin was demonstrating the procedure to the man replacing him. The screwdriver slipped. The shell closed, and the room filled with blue light. The air itself being torn apart by the burst of radiation. Slotin reacted in under a second. He tore the top shell off with his own hand and threw it on the floor. The reaction stopped instantly. He had absorbed roughly the dose you'd get standing 1,500 meters from an atomic bomb. Then he did something that tells you everything about him. He asked everyone to stay exactly where they were standing, and he drew a diagram of their positions on the blackboard. He knew he was dead. He was collecting data so the doctors could calculate how much radiation the other 7 men had taken. Louis Slotin died 9 days later, on May 30, 1946. The man standing behind him took a quarter of the dose and lived another 20 years. Separated from Slotin by about 1 meter, and by Slotin's own body. After that, criticality experiments were never done by hand again. They moved to remote control 400 meters away, behind shielding. Both accidents were caused by a hand. Daghlian dropped a brick. Slotin's screwdriver slipped. In both cases, the plutonium behaved perfectly predictably, every second, according to laws that don't change and don't care. The variable was never the physics. The variable was the man. And in both cases, the same hand that caused it was the hand that stopped it. Because both men reached into a live nuclear reaction to shut it down, knowing exactly what it would cost. Daghlian saved a building. Slotin saved 7 people. The most dangerous object of the 20th century never exploded. It sat quietly on a table and waited for someone's hand to slip.